Hi friends, happy Tuesday. How's everyone's end of summer going? I had a mastermind call with the mastermind I'm in with my coach and my mastermind sisters last week, where we were looking at the last 4 months of the year, and it sort of blew my mind that we are in the last 4 months of 2021. I feel like this year, after, I don't know if anyone else has felt this way, you'll have to let me know if you're watching now or in the replay, but I feel like after 2020, with COVID and lockdown, and it was a big year for me, I lost my dad then as well, and then this year, kind of the world being more open, it's been like a weird mindfuck with time, and this year has like strangely evaporated. So it's a little bit crazy, like making to me that, not crazy making in a bad way, but I'm just sort of like, wow, we are in the end of the year. If you listen to my podcast, I think I shared this on a live stream a couple weeks ago too. You also know I'm about a month out from my wedding date, so that's what's happening over here. So all of this is sort of like, how is this all happening? So kind of a funny time trip over here. So let me know how you are enjoying your summer, kind of end of summer. I guess if you're on the other side of the world, in the Australia side, it would be you're in the winter time. Let me know how you're doing and how you're feeling as we look at the close of 2021. Before we dive into today's topic, couple things. I think the first thing I want to remind everyone, tomorrow, September 1st, if you're watching this on the replay, we have our live Q&A, the mindset and strategy behind making more money on your terms, making money doing what you love on your terms, which is what I'm all about. If you know me, you know I'm all about the power of questions. I have a whole podcast about it, and I believe so much in the power of one-on-one coaching and having that intimate support and being able to look at things not in a cookie cutter kind of a way. So I really want to be able to support as many of you as possible looking at your businesses, answering your questions around business, around your mindset, around your strategy. So sign up. We have a replay going for it. If you can't join us live, you can also send in a question. I will get to as many as I can. I have a good amount of time blocked off for all of you. So that is tomorrow. I want to make sure I remind everyone, last chance to sign up for that. You do need to sign up for the Q&A. It will be on a Zoom line, so if you don't sign up, you will not have the link to join, and I won't be able to answer your questions, so be sure to sign up. I'm also just realizing this is a little far away. Other thing that I want to announce, it looks like we have one spot that we can open up in September for either an intensive or a client. I think October, depends on who renews, but we might be full for then. So if you're interested in one-on-one support, if that's something you're looking for, you've been interested, curious about how I work, absolutely hop on, book a discovery call. I keep them very low key. Fit is very, very, very important to me. I just had a beautiful call with someone last week that I referred out to actually some of my clients. So if it's not a fit, I will lovingly let you know, but be sure to hop on that if you're interested in seeing what that would look like, whether that is now or later. And I think those are all the announcements, and then we can dive into today's topic. So today I wanted to chat about an inside look at what really goes on in a coaching relationship after thousands of coaching sessions. So if you're on my email list, if you saw the blurb for this, I preface this with, I have been coaching, so I have to do the math on this, y'all. And everyone will have to let me know if you're watching now or in the replay. If you are a coach, how long you've been coaching for, how long you've been receiving coaching for if you receive coaching. But I have been, I started my coach training, I think it's 6.5 years ago. And I believe my business, I get the dates sometimes confused. That is, I think I've had my business. So I have been a paid coach for 5.5 years. And I have been receiving coaching as a client, receiving coaching for just as long. So I have been in coaching sessions from both the client side and the coach side for now 6+ years. And I did the math on this. I think this year alone will be over 1,000 sessions that I have been a coach for. And then, I get quite a few on the client side. I also work with a therapist. So I'm on both sides of this so much. And I thought it would be helpful to give a bit of a behind the scenes look from both sides, because I have been getting quite a few client questions in terms of what's normal. I've gotten questions from new clients around sort of like, are they ready for coaching? What can they expect? I know if you've never been coached before, it can be a little bit like, wait, how does this work? If you are being coached, you'll have to let me know what comes up for you, if you have your fears, worries. I think it can be a little disconcerting sometimes to know what's normal, what's not normal. I know I've had those thoughts myself, so I wanted to normalize all of that since this has come up for quite a few people clients in my world. If you have any questions about this while we're going through this, now we're on the replay, throw them at me. I'm always so happy to be a resource for you, and I want to be as open of a book as possible. What I thought we could go through a little bit today is, let's see, I made some notes so I wouldn't forget things. I want to chat through a little bit about what is normal to come up on the client side in a coaching container, just normalizing what people do and don't do in coaching containers. Obviously, this is from my experience. I don't know what everyone's containers are like, but having been in quite a few on both sides for me, I want to talk a little bit about some of the normal concerns that come up for people around coaching and just really normalize all of that. We are going to also chat a little bit about how to get the most from your coaching investments. If you are investing in coaching, just chatting a little bit about what I've seen on both sides, again, as client and coach, how you can really maximize that investment. And then we will also, I don't know what my thing is doing. I think we're still live. I'm getting a weird flash up message. Y'all have to let me know if you can still hear me. And then I will also chat a little bit about why I still work with a coach. So as many of you know, I run a very successful, I've been booked out coaching business I've been booked out for years at this point. We make 30K plus months. I think this month will be 39 or 40K, just to give you insight into what that looks like behind the scenes. I often claim I have a pinch me life. I like to say I'm one of the happiest people I know, and yet I still work with a coach, and I've worked with a coach pretty much consistently since I found the coaching world. So I want to share a little bit about that, why I still work with a coach, what I chat about with my coach, what comes up in that container, because that's also been a question I have had from quite a few people recently. So I figured some of you might want to know about that as well. All right. Let's dig in, and again, throw questions at me. I'm so happy to be an open book. This is such a different type of live stream than what we do usually. So any questions, all the questions, just throw them at me. And you'll have to let me know as well, I think this is helpful for everyone watching on the replay, what some of those concerns you might have, or some of the things you wonder, like, is this normal? Is this not normal in a coaching container? I'll actually preface with that, and then we can talk about what is normal. But a couple things I've heard recently, and some things that have just come up for clients, have been around the idea of, am I doing it right? Am I a bad client? Am I not doing the coaching thing right? I've definitely had multiple clients. I work with high achievers. So if you are a high achiever, I am a high achiever too. This has actually been a concern of mine as well. Like, am I the bad client? Like, am I the pain in the ass client? I know I have absolutely worried that before. So that has come up. You have to let me know if you've ever resonated with that. I have heard from clients just really worrying about kind of being the star client, or worrying like maybe they're the client that's like bringing the roster down. I've had concerns around repeat topics come up. So those are just some of the general things I've heard from clients. And then also just sort of not knowing what to bring to what's okay to bring to a coaching call, or what not to bring to a coaching call. So if you have any to throw into the mix, again, today's conversation, I really want this to be a benefit for you and everyone watching, and also just to normalize this so much, because with one-on-one coaching, you don't get to see behind the scenes of everyone's call. So I want to normalize as much as possible, always. So what I will say first and foremost, and you have to excuse me, I'm gonna be a little more on my notes today than usual, because I did want to make sure I shared some of the things that felt important here. Then, usually I'm teaching stuff that I kind of know like the back of my hand, but I want to make sure I touch on a couple things today. One of the things that I think is really important to say with one-on-one coaching, and maybe just helpful to highlight, is every single one of my clients is completely different. And that means our calls are completely different. And so while I am the same coach across client calls, no client is the same, no approach, no like strategy, no mindset strategy, but really even the way the coaching kind of style and relationship is varies a little bit client to client. Of course, because I am the same coach across calls, there's definitely an overlap, but I think it would be really interesting if you took maybe 3 of my clients who are different personalities, because a lot of my clients have very different personalities, very different businesses. I bet they would all say something different about the way our coaching conversations go, about the style of my coaching. And I say that because I want to normalize that for any of you who wonder about that, or worry about that, or worry like, but what if my personality isn't right for one-on-one coaching? Or like, what if I'm different than, the coach I work with the rest of their clients? And I think that's the beauty of one-on-one, is it really is so tailored and specific to each person. And of course, if you're working with a coach, they're going to bring their magic, their essence, their zone of genius, their style, but it is going to vary. And ideally, it's really going to match you and really suit you and who you are. So just to normalize that, I had 4 or 5 calls today, and I would say every single one of those calls, we talked about a completely different topic. Every single one of those clients, completely different. Every single one of those clients, a slightly different approach and a slightly different way that our calls tend to go. So again, just to normalize that, because I think otherwise you can almost like maybe hear a friend or a peer, or like maybe you're in a mastermind, you hear, what someone's sharing about how their sessions are going, you can feel like maybe you're doing something wrong. And I just want to normalize you're not doing it wrong, you're just doing it the way that serves you. And you're not doing anything wrong in the coaching container if you're showing up as you and to get what you need from a client coach relationship. The other thing, this was actually something I was sharing with a client today. This came up on a call and something we were talking about that I think is really important to normalize and to highlight, particularly with one-on-one coaching, because it is so tailored and specific to you. Remember, your coach's job, what they're there for, it's really for you and what you want and your goals. I talk a lot about creating your version of success. My mission, my work for each client really isn't about me and my goals and what my business needs and what I think a client should do or what I think would be a good goal for a client, right? That is irrelevant to a one-on-one coaching container, really to a group or mastermind as well. But I'm talking specifically about one-on-one coaching here just because that's what I focus on. It's really what is the goal a client wants, what is the best goal for them. And I say that because it's so easy, I think, to go into a coaching container, and this has come up for some of my clients, and almost I feel like you have to pick a goal that your coach wants, or you have to pick a strategy that your coach wants, or that you have to want what you think your coach wants. I've had many clients where we've had to unpack that they want very different business models than me, and letting that be okay, or that they have, a different goal. Sometimes we talk about this around money, particularly because I do the revenue share, where I have clients with like, but I don't want to scale my business to the next level right now. And there's, I think, can be this concern around, what Kim might want, or I don't know why I'm putting that in air quotes, and what I want to normalize here and really invite everyone who is working with a coach to think about and to remember is it is about you. It is about your goals. And really invite you to look for a coach who's really going to champion you and your goals, not what they want for you or what they think is best for you, what you want for you. And to remember that a coaching container and space, in my opinion, and this is coming from, literally thousands and thousands of calls at this point. I would have to do the actual math. I'm pretty sure it's over 5,000 calls at this point. Really remembering like kind of what your coach wants is irrelevant. It doesn't freaking matter. The whole idea of a coaching container is to create a safe space for you. It's to create a safe space to pull out of you, to help you get clear on what is your version of success, what is your goal, what do you want, and then what's the way that you want to achieve that goal, whether it's in business or not. You might be working with a health coach, you might be working with a relationship coach. It's still about what's your goal, what is your way of achieving that goal, and then helping you get out of your own way to get to that goal. So that feels really important to normalize so that you can just remove some of that concern and noise that I think can come up with around coaching. Hi, Courtney. Hi, lady. How are you? Nice to have you on. Let me know if you have any questions around this while we are chatting. Again, I want to make sure, especially since this is more a behind the scenes look at coaching and coaching containers, what's normal. Really want to be available for questions. What I will say, because I know I'll have a lot of people on the replay for this, tag me as well if you have a question. I don't always see them otherwise, so tag my name in the comments if you're watching on the replay. Okay, so a couple things to normalize. Completely normal in the coaching container. This one feels like there's a couple that feel really important. And gosh, I have a lot to share here today. We're gonna try to get this in an hour though. The first thing here is normalizing bringing the same topic to a coaching call and needing to go over the same thing more than once. What I like to remind my clients and what I like to tell my clients, because I also get coached, is that I am literally going over the same topics with my coach in different ways over and over again. And I think it's helpful to remember this is how the brain learns. We learn through repetition. We understand things through repetition. It's why, as business owners, as marketers, we repeat our message over and over again, right? It's why we speak to the same topics over and over again, because our audience learns through repetition as well, right? That's how someone gets to know, like, and trust us. It is the same for you in a coaching container, but it's so easy, I think, when you're spending money and when you're investing, and you're like, I just want to get those results, to make it wrong or bad if you have to revisit a topic. And what I really want to invite here is not just to normalize that, but really to say that's doing it right, not doing it wrong. That's actually how your brain learns. That's how you relearn. That's how you shift patterns. That's how you shift habits. That's how you shift your thinking. I was joking with a client today that it's funny because it's true. I think the last 3 calls I've had with my coach, I literally put in our form, hi, I literally need you to tell me the same thing you told me last week because I just need to hear it again. And the funny thing is, one of the things we were talking about for my session is I feel like I'm really integrating into just a new level of like peace and ease. My focus has been really prioritizing my peace, particularly in my nervous system, and just it feels so good. And I feel like I'm in this new, many of you know, if you listen to the podcast, I think I talk about this on a live as well. I'm also doing EMDR therapy for some trauma-related nervous system responses I've been having. And I have just been feeling, EMDR is wild, y'all, but I've just been feeling such a different level of calm and ease. Nothing really externally has changed, just the way I'm being has changed. And it's been a little bit of a mindfuck for me to trust that. It's a bit of a safety response to trust that ease for me, and just like that level of peace in my body and my nervous system. And so I've had to talk about this in multiple ways, and it seems like it doesn't actually seem silly to me, but it could seem like a silly thing to say, I am spending a high premium amount of money to invest in coaching and to talk about the same topic that we just talked about the last session. But I also am so aware that is how you really integrate things. That's how your brain really relearns. And so I want to normalize that because it is just so normal. And for those of you who are coaches, I want to normalize that for you as well. It's not just normal for you on the client side, but if your client brings the same thing to you again and again and again, I think it's important to know how normal that is. Again, thousands and thousands and thousands of calls I have coached or sessions I've coached at this point. It's so normal. And that's important so that you're not making yourself wrong in a client session, or you're not pressuring or rushing a client. I think otherwise, if you don't know that's normal, it can almost be easy to get in your head and to lose presence or to not hold space in the same way, or to kind of want to rush your client, like, come on, figure that out. Or like, why aren't they getting it? Or like, I've told them this a million times, instead of course, I've told them this a million times, and I am here and willing to tell them 1,000,001 times, because sometimes that's just what we all need. Courtney says, I totally agree. I need to hear things over and over to get it to click. Thank you for saying that, Courtney. I so appreciate that. And it's all of us, right? I think it's sort of like why we can all repurpose content and not worry about repurposing content. It's the same phenomenon. All of us need to hear content and ideas more than once. If we think about when we were in school and we had to study when we wanted to learn something, right? We had to hear the same thing and study it and hear it more than once for it to really click and land in our brain, because that's how our brain lays down new neural pathways. Literally, our brain learns through repetition. It also learns through heightened emotional response and some other factors that help lay down those neural tracks. But it's also one of those ways is through repetition. And for most people, if you're in a coaching container and you're unwinding patterns and you're looking at your blind spots and you're shifting thinking and patterns you've had probably for decades, which means you've repeated them for decades. So it makes sense that you might have to hear things more than once or in a new way to unlearn it and to create a new neural track in your brain. So super normal, really important to understand as a client so you don't make yourself wrong, but also as a coach if you're a coach, so you're not making yourself wrong and you can really support a client through that and help them feel okay with that. Okay, the next thing that I think is really helpful, I'm just looking at my notes here, to say that's normal in a coaching container is it's really normal to get frustrated, to get triggered, to get upset, to get pissed off, to get mad at your coach, at the topic, to feel during a coaching call as much as you might feel excited and energized and empowered. I feel grateful. Most of my clients at the end of our sessions are like, I feel so excited. I feel so motivated. Like our calls feel so great. And I also have to tell you, I like secretly get excited when a client's pissed off at me, because I also know that usually means we're having a breakthrough moment or they're really shifting through some things. And I know part of my job as a coach is to really create a safe enough space and to speak to the truth and to speak to the things other people just aren't willing to speak to in a safe space and container, and hold the space around and let it be okay for someone to safely feel triggered, safely get annoyed, safely get frustrated. And that often is also an indication that I'm doing my job well for someone, but also that they're really leaning into the coaching and receiving the coaching. And so I normalize that, and I really want to bring that here because I think sometimes it can feel like on the client side, like, oh my gosh, like, did I do something wrong here? Or why do I feel this way? Or like, I shouldn't ever feel this way, or maybe there's something wrong with me. And vice versa. I think a lot of my clients are also coaches, or as many of my clients who are not coaches at all. I have many clients who are coaches, and sometimes part of what I support them with is what's going on with their clients, and we'll kind of unpack. It's sort of like unpacking what's going on with clients and just for them in the container. And I know sometimes it can, on the coach side, feel like, oh my gosh, I did something wrong if I pissed off my client, or if they're mad, or if they got triggered in a session. And I just want to normalize that really is just a very, very normal part of personal development. You have to think about when we're in a coaching container on either side, you're essentially saying, hi, welcome. I think my coach said this to me once. I think this is her phrasing, so I can't take credit for it, but essentially, welcome to your bullshit. And here it is, and let's unpack it, and let's sit in this together. Let me sit with you in your muck. Let me sit with you in your stickiness. Let me help you process. Let me help you shine a light in those dark corners and crevices of your mind that you've been kind of like trying to shove away and not want to look at. Let me help you process the hard, sticky stuff, as much as we're looking at, what are those goals? What's your version of success? Let's go crush some goals. Let's go make some money. Often the way to those results, right, is sitting in some of the muck and stickiness with someone on either side. So really important to normalize, because I think it's really easy to make that wrong, or to sign up for a coaching container, not kind of know what you're getting yourself into. And I don't know, any of my clients, if you're watching now, not that any of my clients have to say who they are, but if you're watching now on the replay, I'm sure many of them would say that there has been at least one time where they've maybe wanted to throw things at me, or have been frustrated with me, and I say that because it is so normal. And so again, like, super normal for you on the client side, you're not doing anything wrong. And for those of you who are coaches and holding space, whether it's one-on-one or in a group container, super, 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 super normal. And I personally see that as just an indication that you're doing your job by being able to hold that space around it. Hey, how are you, lady? Let me know if you have any questions. Nice to have you both on here. Okay, so super normal about that. Super normal, again, to be mad, frustrated, to feel triggered on both, for the client side. Hopefully as a coach, if you are a coach on the coach side, this is the stuff where we want to do our work, right, with our support system, so we're not feeling triggered if that happens, so we can really hold that space and allow someone to be frustrated or upset, and let that be okay, so we can sit with them in their discomfort or their muck. Okay, another really normal thing here that feels important to speak to is having an ebb and flow with the amount of support you need and how coaching is feeling. So I'll speak to this more from my side on the client side, because I've worked with a coach pretty much my entire time I've been coaching. So that's, I don't know, 6 years plus at this point. And I've worked with the same coach for, I don't even know how long, 3 years, 3.5 years. And what I can say is there are times where I really need to lean into that support. And there are times when I don't need to lean into the support as much. There are times when I have so much I bring to a call, and there are times when I'm like, I'm just not actually sure what we're gonna talk about at all. We're just gonna see where this call goes, and I know I'm gonna get what I need to get. And I say that because I think it can be helpful to know that's super normal, to take some of the pressure off. I think sometimes in a coaching container, there can be a lot of pressure around either showing up like a perfect client or being the star. One of my clients calls it being the star student client, where it's almost like you don't need anything and you have everything all figured out and you're like doing all the things, which, like, reminder that your coaching containers are really there so you don't have to be the star, you can get support. I think there can sometimes be pressure to feel like I need to get the most out of my investment, I need to bring so much to my session. And I think there can also sometimes be pressure where it's like, I need to prove that I'm doing things and being held accountable, like, let me check in all the time. And so what I will offer here is it's completely normal to have the level of support you need ebb and flow, to have the number of breakthroughs you're having ebb and flow, to have like the epic calls with really normal calls ebb and flow, just like anything in business and life. And the amount of support you're going to need depending on what's going on is probably going to ebb and flow. And I think the more you can know that's just simply normal, and the more you can release the pressure around that to look any specific way, the more you can lean in for the support you actually need at any given time. And I think one of the gifts of coaching and being in a coaching container is also learning how to receive support, how to be able to check your need to be the star client, or to be perfect, or to perform, or to do things right, to be able to check that at the door, and just to show up and to practice receiving support in the way you need, to be practice showing up just as you are. If you get nothing else from a coaching container, I think that is one of the biggest gifts you can give yourself. So I really want to normalize that, because I think sometimes it can seem, especially when we're in the online space and we're just hearing client wins, right? I'm a business coach, so part of my job is to show and share with you client wins. And I'll share, client scaled to a 50K month, or had a 20K month, or had their first 13K month, or had a 35K launch, or whatever these things are. And we forget where that's true, but it's also, you're hearing one slice and you're not hearing all of the behind the scenes of what those sessions looked like, and how some of those sessions might have been messy, and some of them might have not been so messy, and sometimes they might have needed support, sometimes they might not have needed as much support. So again, just to simply normalize that. So if you're a coach, you're not making it wrong if clients need a lot of support, or if they don't need a lot of support. But also, if you're a client, so you're not feeling like you need to show up and perform in your containers, such an important gift to give yourself. Quita says, are you taking questions? I am so taking questions. Throw them at me if you have any questions about what goes into a coaching relationship, what that looks like, the behind the scenes on either the client or coach side. Throw that at me. And then we have a Q&A for mindset and strategy tomorrow. If you want to sign up for that, you can join us. It'll be a live Q&A. If you can't be live, you can also throw your question here if you want. I'll answer it tomorrow on the live. But yes, please, I'm always available for questions. Okay, there's so much I want to share here with y'all around what's normal, and I see that I have a lot of things here. So let me know if you do have a specific question. I'm just gonna kind of keep running through this. So another thing that's really normal and that I just want to speak to, and then I'll share a little bit more about how to make the most out of your coaching investment. I think it's really, really normal to, actually, let me answer this question first, and then I will go to the next one. Okay, Laquita, am I saying your name correctly? First, that's important. She says, what do you recommend when, as a coach, you find yourself coaching a friend? So mixing between friend giving advice and coach, the best way to keep it clean when helping a friend. That is such an excellent question. So a couple thoughts come up there for me, and feel free to let me know if this answers your question, or if you have any other, oh good, I'm glad I'm saying your name correctly. If you have any follow-up questions around this. I have a few good friends over the years that I have supported in a coaching container. So a couple things that I find really helpful when you are working with a close friend. The first thing I always think about is, if you're in a friend conversation and not a coaching container that has been established, where your friend says, hi, I'm raising my hand, I would like to be coached. I personally come from the school of thought of, I am not coaching someone who hasn't raised their hand, who isn't essentially signing up for a coaching conversation. So when I'm with my friends, just in like hanging out friend mode, I don't coach them. I am there in friend mode. I am not there to be a coach. I am not wearing my coach hat. Of course, I'm always a coach. I've been doing this for years. So like, I'll probably just naturally always want to ask certain questions, but I'm not holding space like a coach. Like it's a very different conversation. And if I feel like we're going to get into a conversation that might feel a little more coach-like, where I'm putting my coach hat on, I will always check in with someone if it's in kind of that friend container, and ask for permission to coach. So this is something, when I was learning about coaching, was kind of the school of thought we came from, was just to ask for permission first. And it's kind of like, don't coach people who don't want to be coached. I think of it like as if you were a doctor and you went to a party. Let's say you were an elbow doctor, if that's even a thing. You wouldn't just, because everyone you're talking to, you wouldn't just like go up to them and diagnose them without them telling you first that they want a diagnosis. You wouldn't go up to someone and just be like, oh, I noticed you have these symptoms. Let me support you with that. You would check in first. But if you were at a party and someone was complaining about their tennis elbow, it's like, I don't even know if this is a thing, but just hang with me in terms of my example. You might say, oh, I'm a doctor. I help with tennis elbow. Can I ask you a few questions? Would you like some support around that? So if it's in a friend container, that's how I think about it. If it's in a coaching container and a friend wants to work with me, a couple things I check on. First, I always check in with, is this someone that I can actually support in terms of my zone of genius, my wheelhouse? Like, is this the work I do? And then is this someone I feel like I can show up as a coach and really hold the boundary around the coaching container, where I feel like I can speak the truth and ask the hard questions and say the shit someone else isn't going to say? Do I feel like I can do this with that friend? Or does it feel like I'm gonna like tiptoe around things because of our friendship? That's always my personal prerequisite. And then I always set up, so I have a few friends I'm working, one friend I've been working with for years. We then just establish really clear boundaries if we're working together, where our coaching container looks like this. These are the calls. This is where you can get support. I use Basecamp between calls. Anything coaching related, you like do it here. This is what this looks like. Anything friend related, text me, have a phone call, but I want to keep them separate. And so that's how I personally do that. We just make really clear boundaries around kind of what's happening in either container. But then that also means if I'm coaching a friend and they're paying me for a coaching container, and then let's say we go and get a drink or hang out and get dinner, I'm not coaching them when we're having dinner. Like, it's really important for me to keep that separate. So hopefully that is helpful. Okay, Laquita says friend mode, and then the friend says, maybe you can help me since you are a coach. And then they unload a lot right then and there. Thinking how to advise them and not say, let's chat about this later, or give friend advice, when you know questioning them would help as a coach. Maybe that's the key, to check and ask, would you like me to coach you on that? Yeah, I think it's exactly that. Asking for permission is, I think about this in sales conversations as well. I always think like we just want to ask for permission. I think it creates so much, in a sales conversation, that creates so much safety. In a coaching container as well, I'll even ask that sometimes in a coaching container for a client, would it feel good to have a reflection about this, or would you like to have a reflection on this? So I think that can feel very safe, especially with a friend. And then the other thing I would check in for you is, does it feel good to you to coach someone outside of kind of a coaching, like a set coaching container and call? Something I know for me that feels good, if this is helpful, just to kind of keep that boundary. If someone's kind of unloading, I might say, hey, I would love to support you with that. That's the kind of things I support clients with all the time. Why don't we schedule a time so I can really support you and we can have that space to dive into this? Why don't we set aside some time? I don't know if you offer a free session. I used to offer a free session. I would definitely, I might gift a friend a session, but I would say I'm happy to offer you a free session, but let's actually schedule, put some time on the calendar, carve that out so I can really show up and support you and you can feel good about that. But I think that would feel, maybe better or cleaner for both of us. So those are kind of the two ways. If it feels like you need to give advice in that moment, I personally would just check in and ask. And then I think it can always be nice just to set, I use the word container a lot, but I think of coaching as we kind of create a container and safe space. So I think sometimes that can be helpful for you as much as it might be for your friend. So Laquita, let me know if that makes sense. She said that helps. Thanks. What I did was have a 3-hour call with her and then so scheduling later would have been a bit better. Yeah, so I think, you didn't do anything wrong. Beautiful that you supported her, but 3 hours is also a lot of energy and space holding for both of you. So just great thing to know for next time. That's just a great boundary you can hold and a great thing you can set up. And then you're also really helping set that boundary of, I am a coach, this is what I do. And so maybe if we're having 1 hour call to talk about it, then anything else, maybe she wants to pay you for a session if she didn't, or maybe she wants to pay, hire you for something. So I'm glad that was helpful. Let me know if you have any follow-up questions, and anyone else, feel free to throw questions at me as well. Courtney says, hi, Kim, popping in to say hi and catch your wisdom. Hi, Courtney, I love you. How are you? Nice to see you. And I'm so happy to have you here. We're talking all about a real look behind the scenes at what goes on in coaching containers and coaching relationships on both the client and coach side. So if you have any questions, feel free to throw them at me as well. Okay, so the next thing I was going to jump into, but keep the questions coming if y'all have any. Something that I think is really normal and I think is helpful to speak to is kind of worrying about doing it wrong, worrying about being a star client, worrying about, I say star clients, that's how another one of my clients phrased it, so I'll give her credit for that, kind of worrying about the results you're getting and pleasing your coach. And I say this because I've had this come up with multiple clients of mine. I've also felt this, which is why I want to share this from just the client side as well. My coach also does a revenue share model. It's not my brilliant, innovative idea. I stole like an artist and was, I love it so much on the client side that is how I now run my business on the coach side. And so I know how that can feel because I literally report my income to my coach, and I'm very aware that she makes money based on the income I make. She also is a business coach, so it's normal for her to share client wins. Just like if she were a relationship coach, she would share, relationship wins in her content. The same way I do something very similar, right? I share, my clients report their revenue to me. I often share client wins. And I think what can be very normal then to have happen is on the client side, it can feel a little like, oh my gosh, am I letting my coach down? I the one who's like not doing good enough. Am I not the star client? And it can almost have you feel like there's pressure to be performative or to be like the good student or the good client. So I want to say first, that is super normal, like so normal, I think, especially in our online space, because we just have a different level of look behind the scenes, because nowhere before online marketing would we all know everyone's business, because what we do now, right? We're just all sharing content and all sharing results and all speaking about everything in the online space. That's never happened before. If, pre-online marketing days, if you were working with a coach, you'd have no idea what their other clients were like or what their other clients were doing unless they specifically told you, which would kind of breach confidentiality. So I just normalize that because I think comparisonitis, as much as it's something we want to protect against, our brains are wired to compare. It's a very normal thing. And if you're a high achiever, which most likely you are if you're in this group, if you're driven, if you're a business owner, like all of these things that are very, very normal, if your brain is wired for that, it's a very normal thing to do. So I just want to normalize that. If you've ever experienced that, you are not the only one. And I also just want to normalize from the coach side. What I can say from my perspective is it's something I don't even think about with clients ever. Like, I love all of my clients. I love working with all of my clients. There's no like star client. It's literally not something I think about with the revenue share. I don't even think about the revenue share until our monthly thing goes out to check in on the revenue. It's like, couldn't be farther from my radar at all. So I think that's helpful to say. Literally what I'm thinking about on any client session is, who is this human in front of me? What is it they want to create? How can I support and champion them through that? What's getting in their own way? What's the actual problem we need to solve, right? Like what's the muck that's coming up for them that they need to process? What blind spot are they not aware of? Like, how can I support them to getting what they want? Like, none of that is ever coming up for me. And I know, because I've chatted with my coach about this before, and I believe her, I've worked with her for years, it's not coming up for her either. And again, I have coached, it's 5,000 or 6,000 sessions at this point, like thousands of sessions. That's never been on my mind. There has never been like, oh my gosh, I can't believe this or that for like ever on a session. And my job as a coach, and this is kind of what we were talking about earlier, what I really see my job as a coach for, it's sort of like, you're a star client if you come and bring all of you and just tell me what you actually need support with in a session, because my job is to support you with whatever you need support around. I wouldn't have a job otherwise. That's why someone's hiring me. So if you're working with a coach, if you're working with someone and that noise is coming up for you, I think it's just so helpful to remember. The best way you could be a star client is by just actually allowing yourself to take that pressure off and not try to be a star client or compare yourself, and to really just show up and get support around what you need. That's what us coaches love to do, right? That's why coaches are coaches in the first place. That's what they're gonna love. And then to remember, it's not about your coach, it's about you. Like, this is a place to practice being as selfish, as healthily selfish. Healthy selfishness is a new term that I'm playing with, and we're gonna have to do a live stream on that, but really practice leaning into being selfish in a coaching container. That's so important, and one of the best ways you can get the most out of a coaching container. And remember, a coaching container is one place where you don't have to overfunction. You can really practice leaning in support, asking for what you want, being mad and frustrated at someone who's going to be neutral in that container with you. And it's just a place to practice being selfish and not feeling like you have to perform in a really healthy way. The other thing that I think is really just interesting to notice as well, if you feel that like, and just to normalize this, if you feel like, oh gosh, I'm like doing that thing where I feel like I need to be the star client, and like the coach I'm working with, I feel like everyone else must be doing it right and they must all be doing better and getting better results than me. I'm like the problem client. Every one of their clients probably feels the same way, because remember, the whole point of coaching is for someone to bring their stuff to a call. And so it's just funny to think like that's what everyone is thinking. And what I have found so often is we notice the negative. Our brain is wired to notice the negative 3 times to 1 from the positive. And it's really fascinating how you might notice, oh, here's the negative stuff I'm bringing to a container because I need support around it, and miss how well you're doing in all of your personal growth. We tend to normalize our personal growth and not notice that, and just kind of like to notice the negative in the moment, to the degree that I've had clients before worry about that, and they'll reference something they've seen, like a client win. I'm like, you know that was you, right? I had one client where I actually reflected her wins to her. I was like, oh, well, what if you saw a post of mine celebrating a client and I said X, Y, and Z? I think she had just had a 76K month at the point. And I was like, what if you heard me say, I just had a client who had a 76K month working fewer hours than ever before? She's like, oh my gosh, one of your clients did that? And I started laughing. I was like, that's you. She didn't even realize her own win. And I reflect that here because that is what's really normal in a coaching container. And for us as humans, which is why I push my clients to celebrate so much, it's so easy for the brain to just be aware of the current problem or challenge or hurdle you're jumping through, and to not even notice the wins you're having, to the degree that you might be comparing yourself against yourself. So I find that really fascinating, and just really important to normalize, again, because the brain notices the negative 3 to 1. The other thing I have clients do a lot, a lot of my clients stay with me for years and renew. Sometimes what we'll do is we'll look back at where they were 6 months ago or a year ago or 2 years ago and thank their past version of themselves for the work they've done. And they won't even realize sometimes, like, oh my gosh, I've just gotten so used to my new normal. I've forgotten what life was like, what my mindset was like a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago. So I say that because we're always just operating. I mean, ideally, you're not always thinking backwards or forwards. You're in the present moment. But because of that, it's so easy to miss the nuances, or to miss your growth, or to miss your wins if you're not consciously paying attention for them, and then to make yourself wrong all over the place, but particularly in the place that you're investing in getting support. So really want to invite everyone to know, A, that's normal, but B, to practice letting yourself off the hook there and seeing you're doing it right. Like, you don't have anything to prove in a coaching container, especially if you're paying someone, right? Like, you're paying someone to support you. Take that pressure off, but to also remember you're probably doing so much better than you even realize, because that is just the evolution and what happens when you integrate changes and shifts. Okay. Well, are you all good for another 15-20 minutes? Because I thought what would be helpful is just to spend a few minutes talking about how to get the most from your coaching investments, because I think there's a few things there that might be helpful. And then I'll just normalize a little bit about the kind of things I talk about with my coach, because I know I didn't think this would be an interesting thing, but apparently it is, because I've had quite a few people ask me recently what the heck I talk about in my coaching calls. So I thought we could chat about that a bit. So let me know if you have any questions and if that's interesting, because I know we've been live for 45 minutes and I didn't even know this would be a topic that would be interesting to everyone. So I only know because people have asked me a bunch. Okay, so how to get the most out of your coaching investment. I'm just seeing here if I have anything else, because I had so many notes. If there's anything else I really wanted to normalize, I think we normalized. The last thing I will normalize, then how to get the most out of your coaching investments. I think the other thing to normalize is it's super, super normal, especially if you've been working with a coach for a long time, to not know what to talk about on a coaching call. And I say that because I can't tell you how many times I get on a call with my coach and I'm not quite sure what we're going to talk about. And sometimes those are the best calls we have. So I just want to normalize that, because I think sometimes we can, again, put pressure on, like, I need to know what to talk about. And like, I almost need like a blueprint of like, these are the things we're gonna do on a call. And well, there's nothing wrong with that. I think there is an element to coming to a call prepared if there are things you want support around, asking for that support, absolutely. There can be just as much magic in, I think some of the power of coaching is also like what happens when we just dive into kind of what's presently going on. Some of my personal biggest shifts have come from calls like that. So I wanted to normalize that because I think that's just another way our human brains want to make us wrong. And if you can kind of lean into, and this is a way to get the most out of your coaching investment as well, if you can allow yourself to lean into the magic of coaching and to trust a coaching session and to trust your coach, whoever you might be working with, I think that's such a gift you can give to yourself. And it's really fascinating what can get uncovered. I think I shared this on our last live. I've been doing, just for kind of fun, I'm always wanting to sharpen my coaching tool belt, axe, saw, and I've been doing kind of like a self-study program with Rich Litvin, who's a coach whose work I really admire. I think he's just a brilliant coach, and kind of watching, this has been like a program where you watch him coach other people, and it's been really validating and lovely to see how often he doesn't know what they're going to talk about, the client doesn't know what they're going to talk about, and just watching the magic unfold from that, and watching the magic unfold even from the moments of silence, of just watching both people sit in that silence, and how on the coaching side, if you can be willing to sit in silence, but also on the client side, if you can allow yourself to sit in some silence, just what the brain will churn up. And I think just remembering, so most of us don't have dedicated space and time to think out loud, to process our thoughts, and to have someone else hold space for that, and to hold space for processing, and to hold space to like allow for that silence and to reflect back, and how powerful that can be. And so I say that on either side, if you're a coach or if you're a client, super normal to not know exactly how a call is going to go or what you're going to talk about. And that's not a bad thing. That can be a really beautiful, powerful thing. I personally think that can be a very fun thing as well. Okay, so just some thoughts on how to get the most from your coaching investment. So a couple things here that come up. Every coach is going to be different, right? Some coaches will be a little more structured, some won't be as structured. I think always what I would say is, I personally think coaching is magic, obviously, or I wouldn't be focused on one-on-one and still doing it, 6.5 years later. But I think every coach is different, and every coach is going to have a slightly different style, and they're going to vibe and mesh with you differently. And so part of the way you're going to get the most out of your container is giving yourself permission to find a coach that you vibe with and that you trust and you feel good working with. I can't speak to how important that is, and to give yourself that gift. One of the things, we kind of talked about this earlier when I was talking about normalizing some of the things, but I think one of the ways you can get the most out of your coaching investment is to really allow this to be a space where you practice asking for support. I think one of the biggest gifts coaching can do, especially for business owners, because we're so good at like being go-getters and doing things on our own and holding the whole pie, so to say, is it can be a place where you practice asking for support and what you need. And I think for so many reasons, depending on how you were raised, I think many people have a challenge around that. And so I really invite anyone, if you're investing in coaching, to really practice using this as a space to practice receiving support and asking for what you want and need. Whether you're on the coach or client side, something like, I think this can be helpful as a coach to think about when setting up containers with your clients, and on the client side to think about with your coach, so that you can help your coach support you. I like to remind clients, I'm not a mind reader, and I don't have the answers. I don't have a secret. I think this is with anything, but particularly I think sometimes with business coaching, people think like I've got like a magic secret that I like keep behind the closed door for like, once you're at a certain level, or once you've like worked with me for a certain amount of time, like then I'm gonna like pull out the secret business strategy. If you're working with a health or fitness coach, you might feel the same way. If you're working with a relationship coach, right? You might think like once like they've got a secret they're saving for you. And I think it's just helpful to know your coach does not have the answers. Your coach does not know a secret you don't know. And what I personally believe around coaching is it's really a space for you to work with someone who can pull the secret and magic out of you, to pull the answers out of you. And of course, like sometimes coaches are gonna, give their perspective and their reflections and their feedback and what they think, but that's why literally I have a podcast called One Question, right? So much of coaching is my asking questions and my sitting in silence with people, my helping people find what's true for them. I think that's so much of the magic and power. But I think knowing that going in, because I think it can be helpful to know that so you can get the most out of your coaching investment by not almost setting yourself up to be frustrated when someone doesn't have an answer for you. But also on the flip side, remembering that your coach is not a mind reader. They're not like some like crazy psychic that knows exactly what you need and what doesn't feel good. And they're, you know, hopefully really gifted and knowledgeable in holding space and supporting you, but they're not going to be a mind reader. So on the coach side, something I like to tell clients is, please let me know, give me feedback. Let me know what feels good, what doesn't feel good. How do you like to be supported? It's a question I ask in the first form clients send in. It's every single kind of questionnaire. I have a space for clients to let me know like any feedback for me. And on the client side, I think one of the best ways you can get the most from your investment is if your coach is inviting you to do that, to lean into that if there's something you want to share. I personally love when clients tell me, hey, this feels good. Actually, this doesn't feel good. This would feel really supportive. I said at the beginning of our live stream, my clients are all so different, and my coaching style changes a little bit depending on each client. Every client needs something a little different. And part of what's helpful for me is when a client says, hey, you know what would be really helpful or would be really supportive to me is if we did this or if we played with this. But I don't know if a client doesn't tell me. And so one of the best ways for you to get the most out of your investments is to give yourself permission to communicate that and to check in. You know, if your coach doesn't offer a space for that, just to check in with, hey, would it be okay if I shared some feedback? Or would it be okay if I shared with you something that would be really supportive for me? Or like, this is how I best, like most feel supported. So I can't speak enough to that. And again, going back to one of the gifts of a coaching container is you also get to practice flexing that muscle of getting clear on what would feel good and how you do like to be supported and asking for that support. As a business owner, that is such a skill set and a muscle to work. And I think such a muscle that helps you scale, right? As you're growing a team, that's all about receiving support. As you take payments, that's all about receiving payments, right? We're practicing stretching our receiving muscle in different ways. So that is one way to get more from your coaching investments. Trying to see here if there was anything else. And then the other piece is kind of here about getting the most from your coaching investment. This is kind of what we were talking about before. I really invite clients to show up prepared for their coaching session. And prepared looks different for everyone, but to really show up fully and prepared and then to trust the coaching process. And prepared, what I mean by that is if there is something specific, if you're working with a coach and there is something specific you want support around, take a moment and get prepared and know what that is. I know for my calls, everyone works differently, but for my calls with my coach, I spent some time before our session, even if I don't know exactly what we're going to talk about, I absolutely take some time to just kind of jot like what's on my mind, what are some of the thoughts, like what are some of the like shitty thoughts I've had, or like some of the things I like want to stretch into, like what are some of the places, like things I've noticed that I want to bring to the table. I think that can just be so wildly helpful to come in prepared in that way, and to also set yourself up for success by showing up for a call in a place where you can be present, where you can, you're in a quiet space where you can actually be in this space. I think I've had someone show up on, like a consultation before where it's like, they've just got so many things going on. And I just know we're probably not going to be a good fit to work together. It would kind of be a waste for them to like show up and like spend all that money on coaching and that investment because they're not even able to show up to the container and get what they need. So I think that's just a gift if you're investing in coaching, something you can think about where it's like, how can you carve out that space and time for yourself to show up and be present for a call? And then kind of with the prepared piece and then trusting the magic of coaching and trusting the process of coaching, I think the other piece I would say there is if you are working with a coach and you are investing, for as much as it's helpful to come prepared, like, hey, these are the things I want support with, to know it's also okay if you don't know exactly what you want support with, and to allow the magic to unfold, and to know so often what we think we need opens up what we actually need in a call. I cannot tell you how often I go to a call with my coach thinking I need one thing, and what we actually talk about and what I actually need is something so wildly different. But kind of coming prepared allows me to open that up, but trusting the process and allowing myself to go with the call really allows me to benefit, to land to that place of what I actually need from a call. And I see the same for my clients all the time. I had a call with a client this morning, and I think it was very much, I think the conversation went very differently than either one of us could have anticipated if we had like a regimen to like, here's the framework we're gonna follow. But it was so important, and the things we got to were exactly what needed to get talked about, and they were the actual next step. If we had just followed the like prepared topic, I honestly think it would have done a disservice to their business and kind of put them on a path that wouldn't have really served what they're wanting to create in terms of results. Okay, I think those are the main things I would say. Like, show up and lean in and trust the coaching process. I think that can help so much with the investment piece. Okay, so I will share just a little bit behind the scenes of what I've been kind of sprinkling this in throughout the live in terms of what I talk about with my coach and just kind of normalizing that. But a few specifics I wanted to share, because I actually had someone ask me that, because I think there's a bit of, I need to, hold on. I think there's almost this idea that it's kind of this idea, like the same way I think we can think that like a coach has like the magic secret answer. Like when you get to a certain level, like then they're gonna be like, okay, now I'm carting out the like next level thing for you. And that's just not a thing. I think it can also seem like, and I didn't know this until someone brought this up with me on a call last week, but I think sometimes it can also seem like, well, when you get to a certain level in business or a certain level of success or a certain level with your whatever, you must talk about like, I don't know, something super secret, or like it must be totally different. And so I just want to normalize, like I talk about the same shit with my coach that my clients talk about with me. Like, I'm a human, they're a human, like we're all just humaning, we're all just like in the human experience together. So like normalizing what we talked about at the beginning of this conversation. I often need to hear the same thing over and over and over and over again in different ways. And I think the main difference is I just have been in a coaching container for so long that I think I'm very coachable, and I think I trust the process really easily, and I think I'm very aware that like, hi, like I need to hear this again. And it's, I think, a little just faster, quicker, easier for me to like notice things and kind of like almost like know my bullshit to bring to a call to unpack and just kind of be willing. I think I'm just like as opposed to maybe 5 years ago or 6 years ago, I think I'm just that much more willing to be like, let's just dive into my bullshit, because I know the sooner we dive into it, the sooner I can kind of move to the other side. So I would say like maybe that's the only difference, but I still need to hear the same thing over and over again. One of the questions that someone asked me is, because I think there's almost an idea too that like we must always be talking about business and strategy. And I think I've talked about this in different ways on live streams before, but my business strategy has not changed much in the last 5 years. I've been in business 5.5 years. My strategy has pretty much been the same. My messaging like has tweaked a little bit. You know what I mean? Like certain things have changed. We've got a podcast now. There have been some things that have kind of changed in that way. But what I would say is when I'm working with my coach, just like full transparency, most of the time we're not even talking about business. Coach, my battery is giant. It's telling me basically I've been talking for a long time. There's the flash, but I think we have enough battery for this. Most of the time we're not talking about business at all. I would say 10% of the time we're talking about strategy and business, but everything, I'm always telling clients, it's all related. So I might be talking about my personal relationships, or something that's going on with my family, or something that's going on in my personal life, or maybe something that is going on with business, but not really business strategy. I'll bring that to the table, or maybe unwinding a pattern I'm noticing, but it's not directly related to business. But what I believe is it's all related. How I, show up there, if I can unwind stuff outside of business, it just makes it easier for me to show up in my business and to run at my strategy. And as a coach, I also think it's really important for me to protect my energy and to be able to like process through things, and so I can show up for client calls really neutral and not like, it's almost like I don't want to have a bunch of like any personal things I'm bringing to a call to them. I'm a human, like as much as humanly possible. I want to be able to check, kind of like process through anything going on so that I can really show up for clients and hold space for them and not project and not bring in my own stuff. So a lot of times that's what I'm using coaching and therapy for, so that I can it's almost like I feel like the more space I hold and the more clients I hold, the more I want to be able to work through my stuff so that I can like expand that capacity to hold other people. So that feels important to say. My coach said this, and I thought this was, sorry, I had a message pop on my phone. I thought this was a really great way to think about it. What I feel like the main difference now working with a coach for as many years as I have, as opposed to when I first started working with my coach, I feel like when I was first working with my coach, it's a lot of the same stuff I may be bringing to a call, but it was a lot heavier for me. And there was a lot more work I had to do to like rewrite patterns and to shift things and to be able to notice things and to like move through resistance. And now it's faster and easier to move through. And she described it as, but it's still really valuable. It's sort of like if anyone ever gets migraines, I'm a migraine sufferer. You don't want to wait until you have a full-blown migraine to take aspirin for it, because then it's almost too late and then you're gonna be knocked out for a week. It's sort of like when you feel a migraine coming on, that's the best time to take some to take some aspirin, so that you can almost like get it right away before it turns into a full-blown migraine. It's almost like the point of the migraine, the point of having a migraine, it's almost like point of no return. You just kind of have to ride that wave. I feel like so much of mindset work and coaching support, like there's different phases of coaching. Like sometimes you're working through the strategy, sometimes you're working through really repatterning stuff. And then there's an element of like, then you're just looking for, how can I take the aspirin before the migraine hits? And I feel like that's a lot of, at this point, when I say I have a pinch me life and I love my business and I'm the happiest I've ever been, and I feel very blessed with the success we have in our business, that is all true. And I can still see when there might be a metaphorical migraine coming up, it's still really valuable for me to prevent that migraine and to get that support around those things so I can process that and kind of prevent the migraine from happening. I don't know if that makes sense, but I feel like that is a lot of what on my side now, what I'm working with my coach on. The other thing for me that I find really valuable, and this is something, and I say this because I've had people ask me like, you've been coached for so long, like your business is at a place where you're happy, like I'm in a place where like we'll keep scaling, but it's not like I'm adding on new things all the time. Kind of like, why would you still spend money on coaching? Why would you still invest in coaching? So part of the reason are some of the things we just talked about, but there's two other things. One, it just feels really good. I just really love coaching, period. And I really love being coached, and I really love what it feels like to be supported. And I honestly think, yes, I could probably navigate all my stuff at this point on my own. I don't necessarily think I need coaching. I think I would be fine. And I really value and really just love how good it feels to be supported, and it makes everything feel better and easier. And that being said, well, I don't think I need coaching at this level anymore. I value it so much, and I do think I benefit massively. Like, it's not just because it feels good. I really come from the school of thought that, and I'm gonna bring Rich Litvin's name up again. He talks about the whole idea of coaching as all of us kind of being on a path in our life and in business by default, and working with a coach helps you get to the destination you wouldn't be able to get to by default. And what I think of, and one of the things I value so much with coaching, I really think with coaching, if you can have a 1 degree shift, if you can get one new idea, if you can have an opening that's a degree different and a perspective shift that is a degree difference, if you think about what a degree difference does for the trajectory of anyone's life. I was doing a live stream with a girlfriend of mine in Australia. We were talking about the COVID and lockdown. We were talking about this in the power of coaching. If you think about, so if this is the like example that always gets thrown around, but I think it's just so helpful. If you think about a plane flying from California to New York, if its destination, if its coordinates get thrown off by 1 or 2 degrees, it will actually land in like Chicago instead of New York, like, or upstate New York. Like, it won't hit its destination. And I think that is so much of what I value in coaching at this point is I know where I'm going. I know the things like yes, I could like coach myself. I don't need coaching. And yet I kind of also do, because I know that a 1 degree shift, and let's not kid ourselves here. My coach is brilliant. I love my coach. I think she's like absolutely brilliant. I have sessions where it's like a 45-degree shift. It's not always 1 degree shift, but I'm so aware that like one new idea, one new insight, stretching me 1 degree difference, like that literally can change the entire trajectory of my business and life. It's why when I talk about on the podcast on One Question, Unapologetic Questions for Unapologetic Results, we talk about how one question can shift the entire trajectory of your business and life. I so fully believe that, because if you have one new insight, one new idea, one new perspective shift, it is that's a domino effect, because if you think differently, if you show up differently, that changes everything. And so for me, in terms of like why would I still be coaching with someone, like, aside from the fact that I just love it and it feels so good to be supported, and like permission, like I give myself full permission. I'm a business owner, right? Like I get to invest my business dollars where I want. I'm investing in myself, it feels good, but I also really know and believe this is what allows me to keep growing and scaling, and not to get stagnant and to not get in my own way, because I have someone who keeps helping me with those insights and those 1 or 2 degree shifts, and sometimes, a whole 45-degree shift. The last thing here that, just so because I didn't know this was interesting, but again, someone asked me last week, and I've had this asked in a couple different ways, so I'm just gonna share because I thought apparently it's helpful for people to know what goes on behind the scenes. But the last thing I'll say in terms of like why I still work with a coach and some of the things we work on, aside from just like, literally everything from what's going on in my personal life and money stuff and family stuff, and it runs the gamut. One of the other values that I really see and that I really benefit from, if anyone listened to this week's episode on the podcast, I was talking about how my fiance just hired a personal trainer at the gym, and he's in excellent shape. He has, I'm very biased, obviously, I am marrying him, but I think I'm also right. He's got a hot bod. I don't know if he can hear me. I'll embarrass him if he can. He doesn't need a personal trainer. He's in great shape, and yet he really values having a personal trainer because it's someone who can help stretch him to the next level. It's someone who can help him see his blind spots. I always like to say to clients, I can't see the spinach in my own teeth. I can see the spinach in your teeth, but not in mine. I think having a coach is someone to mirror back to help you see the spinach in your own teeth, but it's also someone who can stretch you. And so I use my fiance as an example, Eric as an example, he has a name. We talked about this in the podcast, completely different reason. I had one question for you, so go listen to that. But one of the reasons Eric invested in a personal trainer is he has been working out for so long. He's in great shape. He's been doing kind of the same routine for so long. It's just so easy to get into a routine and to have things be normal, to even if you think you're pushing and stretching yourself, to just not even realize that you're hitting your own self-imposed ceiling. And so something I really value and I see really beneficial when you're kind of at a certain level, or if you've been working with a coach for a certain while, yes, it's those 1 or 2 degree shifts. Yes, it's to have someone point out your blind spots and the spinach in your teeth, which we all have them always. But I think there's also an element of, for me personally, I really appreciate being stretched, because all of us hit self-imposed ceilings, and I find personally easier to break through that ceiling, to stretch yourself past what you think is possible, to stretch yourself past your current ceiling and capacity when you have someone else who is stretching you, who can see what's possible, who can kind of see past that ceiling, who can say, but what about this? Or like, hey, did you even realize you're limiting yourself here? Because what we don't realize is all of our limitations, we just believe as truths. All of the ceilings we all put on ourselves, we just think that that is how the world operates. None of us are doing that intentionally. And so I think, again, it's just, this is what I do for clients, but this is also what my coach does for me. And I think that is so valuable. And I use Eric as the example. That's why he has a personal trainer right now. There's some technique stuff where he can't see his own spinach in his own teeth. So it's really helpful to have a coach like point out some techniques and to point out some, like, hey, you can't see that, like, this is the way your back is, or this is the way your knees are, like some of those technical things that we just can't see in ourselves, no matter how long you've been doing something. But I know what he also appreciates is he's just being stretched. He's being stretched past what his previous capacity or like ceiling was. And that feels so good. As humans, I think this is very different than putting pressure on yourself and feeling like you always have to do more and strive more and like get to the next level. I think that can feel very pressurized, but I think if you take that out, I think as humans, we generally feel really good growing and expanding and challenging ourselves. And so I personally really, that feels really good to me to have a container and support around that, where I feel like there's no pressure, right? I don't have to show up and perform. It's not about like, I need to get there to feel good or to feel better, but it feels really good to be stretched and to see like, oh, I didn't even realize this was a self-imposed ceiling or limit, and to go past that. Okay, I think those were the main things I was going to share there, but if anyone has any questions, those were the main things I wanted to say. I think I said, yeah, just in terms of the capacity, I'm just looking, I made notes for us that I wanted to share in terms of why I still work with a coach. So if anyone has any questions before we wrap up, throw them at me. If anyone watching on the replay has any questions in terms of what's normal on the client side or the coaching side, anything you want to hear normalize, anything you want to share about your experience, anything you want to hear about how to get the most out of your investment, any questions about that, so happy to be a resource. Again, I by no means am I don't have all the answers, and I by no means know like all the secrets, but I have literally been on thousands and thousands. I originally titled this hundreds of sessions, and I actually had to do the math on this, y'all, and realized this year alone we'll have had 1,000 coaching sessions with the number of clients I work with and the sessions we have. And that's on the coach side, and then again on the client side, so many. So throw them at me. I cannot speak to every coach-client relationship, but I can definitely speak to, you know, what it's like and normal from, if you multiply that by 5, that's probably 5,000 plus sessions at this point. So happy to speak to that. So throw them at me. Happy to be a resource for you. And again, as a reminder, if you want to join me for the free Q&A, it's going to be like a group coaching session to bring your mindset strategy questions for making money on your terms. That is happening tomorrow. It will be recorded. You can email me your questions. Absolutely feel free to do that if you can't make it live. I will answer live questions first, and then we'll go to any emailed in questions. You do need to sign up to get the link. It will not be on Facebook. This will be on Zoom, so we can have a really safe container for this, so you can feel good about asking your questions. I want you to be able to bring what your actual questions are. If you email me a question, please also let me know. Just give me a little like, what is your business? What do you do? So I have a little context there, because I want to make sure this is specific to you. I will make sure we drop a link to that. You can still sign up. That is happening tomorrow. And then one spot that we are opening up that we will make available in September for either an intensive or client spot. So if you are interested in that, if you want to know what it would look like to work together, if you're curious at all, again, fit is so important to me. So many of my clients and I work together for years and years and years, which I love so much, but because of that, fit is so important to me. So I promise, if it is not a fit, I know so many great coaches. I'm happy to also refer you out. So super no pressure. I will drop a link for that, and then I'll be back next week with another topic for you all. Lots of love. Bye.